making a film concerns, many hundreds of people, and he is the man that gets them all together to put that final result onto the screen.
Okay, cut it. Stop the train there. No one running on the top one. How was that?
For 40 years, David Lean's been regarded as one of the most brilliant large-scale filmmakers in the world. The man who made Dr. Zhivago, Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai is the only British director to have had such spectacular success in a world dominated by Americans. He has the reputation of being one of the toughest and most perfectionist directors in the business.
You see what I mean? Mum's up there. Mum's up there, and we end here, and then she steps in, and in she comes here.
Can't believe it.
That's right.
Now, at the age of 76, Lean's on location again, making a film from E.M. Forster's classic novel, A Passage to India. It tells what happens to two English women on a trip to India in the 1920s. Adela, played by Judy Davis, has come out to see her fiancé Ronnie, played by Nigel Havers. She's accompanied on the trip by Ronnie's mother, Mrs. Moore, played by Peggy Ashcroft. Their visit is to prove catastrophic.
Cut! Good. Very good indeed. That seemed good to you too? Yes. Which you like best? We'll print both, but... Oh, well, if it's as near as that, I'm sure they're both really good. All right, now, chaps, before the sun goes off it, we're doing a long shot by a train coming into the station. Right, run up! Run up!
674, take one.
Lean's films have won 26 Oscars, but he hasn't made a film for 14 years. This is the story of his life's work and his daring return to the screen after most people thought he'd made his last film. Lean is working on one of the early scenes of A Passage to India. The district governor, Turton, and his wife are on their way back from the station. It's Lean's way of introducing us to the fictitious town of Chandrapur.
Right, very good, cut it. That looks very good, Mickey. The dust was almost perfect. That is the first... Look.
This one we see the
We saw the flags. Their curtains in the back, ending on pretty well their faces. The herd of women, the car going through. I think it'll look smashing. It really works. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Zoom. Yeah, that's it. Now do it once for him. I can't operate.
Every shot that's being taken is an attempt to capture precisely what Lean saw in his mind's eye when he wrote the script.
Yeah, he's going too fast, you see. He's trebled it, yes, at quarter, I should think. Let's see him again. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Getting hot. I think the good things in movies are the scenes that are made up of cuts. That person doing this, that person doing that. Quick series of shots, you know? It's very carefully thought out, and I try to imagine what the final result's going to be on the screen, and I put down all those shots.
Lean started adapting E.M. Forster's book into a screenplay in 1980, 3 years before he started shooting in India. The script is now looked after by his continuity lady, Maggie Unsworth, a good friend who's worked with Lean since his first film, In Which We Serve, 44 years ago. Her job is to check that everything in the script is being shot and to note any changes.
My favourite one is The Women Are Worse. Are worse. Last car passes, disclosing a glimpse of flying scarves and picture hats. I wonder which is the best car. I wish I could think of how to give the shot a bit of variation.
because this is just fly. Very light silk, you see. That's a heavyweight thing. It takes a lot to make that kind of material fly. I know it doesn't feel very heavy, but
You've got to be further away from camera.
Yeah, OK, let's
Sorry,
see what,
David.
what we've got. I mean, it's
not
a
bright
shame.
colours.
I know they aren't. What am I doing now? It's in the script, and we haven't got them. Bring them out.
In the script, Lean had imagined the scarves of the women in the car flying in the wind. It isn't working out the way he wanted.
There's no wind immediately behind.
And the wind's following.
It's a vacuum. But I mean, if you had them over the sides, it might work.
Wait 1 sec. Does the front of the windscreen go up? Go. Pretty, they weren't all swelling up. You know, we could go on like this all day. Right, print the one before. Let's go to lunch.
Although Lean has come thousands of miles to film in India, he's decided not to shoot the sequence in a real street. To give him more control, the town of Chandrapur has been specially built, exactly as he imagined it in the script, in the grounds of a Maharaja's Balmoral-style palace in Bangalore.
David has got such a finite vision of what he wants to end up with. His sort of attention to detail has been throughout the whole process of making the film. In other words, he's really started right at the very beginning, visualizing the finished film, and it's all in the script, and everything's there. And I've never been with a director who does that before.
This shot will last 1.5 seconds in the final film. It's going to be a close-up of the car knocking over 2 cyclists.
Right, here we go.
That's lousy. Patrick, let him go on until he gets a bit bored, and then we'll get him. Patrick, he's got to lock so the wheels skid for at least 2 to 3 feet. Cut the skid on this, and let's do it absolutely straight. First of all, look, get the 2 cyclists, and let's see what size we're going to be. Patrick, come here a minute. All we want is the front of the car and the bikes going like that.
Okay, so you
That's
don't
all
want the
it
car to
is.
catch up on them or anything?
I mean, it's 3 feet. Well, he's gone bloody mad. Patrick, let him get so he can make a beeline for the gate. Maybe we have to alter.
Right.
Maybe we have to come over here a bit. I don't know.
If you want somebody in there to help you, do you need somebody in there?
not necessarily.
Right? Okay. Try it once again.
A shorter period.
I'm a fool.
The problem is solved at last by moving the camera a few yards to the left.
How much time would you need?
Well, as they go, we're going to see the car sliding by them, aren't we? Here.
Quicker.
Let's try it. Let's try it. Try it. Look, don't get discouraged. It's bloody difficult.
Absolutely.
I think it was coming straight at
Because
us.
you lined it up this way last night.
That's right,
And
sure.
It looked better
Did we?
somehow, yes. Well,
Were
you
we
kind of
more
looked at
over?
it, then you changed it.
1, 2, 3, go!
Cut it? That must be rather good, wasn't it? Jolly good. The script is, in fact, a blueprint. You know, I may alter it at the time, but it's a frightening job doing a picture in a way because you have hundreds of people around you, a lot of highly paid technicians, the money people practically looking at their watches all the time, and are you going to be behind schedule, etc., etc., etc. And there are tremendous pressures, and my script is something I can lean back against.
People will be impressed by the detail in which you not only imagine the way people look and what they're looking at, but what they do, how they react. I mean, it is totally imagined through. If you read the script very, very
Totally
slowly,
what?
totally imagined through.
Yeah.
If you read the script very carefully, you'll fill it out to be about 5 or 6 times as long. I'm sure you've left a lot out, which you've also thought through. It's thought through that clearly.
Yes, I mean, I did a scene yesterday which I don't think I don't think I could have done if I hadn't written it down. It's the introduction to this Indian character, Dr. Aziz, and we have the collector, who's the sort of miniature viceroy of the district, driving through a town, and he runs down 2 cyclists who just get out of the way in time. Hell of a lot of dust. Action! Dust clears. Go on, more. And that's Aziz. Now, cut. What I think would really be good, another great dollop. Now, I know,
It's late, Carl. 726, take 2.
so that here, I'd like him almost a sort of silhouette. So it's something really clear. I don't care how much we go in. So that on the ground, it's pretty thick. It starts to clear, another great dollop, which will carry right through. All right?
Turn over.
Running.
It's late.
Now, dousing.
Victor.
In you go. Go on. Go on, boys. Go on. Cut. All right. Look, chaps, it's got to go as he's still stooped. OK, once more. Make up, clear him up a bit. Put some more in this. That's all right.
It's late. Turn over.
You stop. Right, in you go. More. No, cut it. It's going the wrong direction. Sorry. Dust. Action. Higher. That's rather good.
Got it? What was that? Number, I mean.
It's late. 726, take 9.
I think it worked. But that's intercut with Aziz and his friend, a young lawyer, watching the various cars of the British officials passing on the way back from the railway station to the British part of the town, you see. And it was a remark. They look, another car passes. Remark, another car passes. I mean, I thought of this idea of dust. Do you remember in the old days, a picture of petrol advertisement? That was Shell, that was. Car. And they come in through an arch, dust, cover the characters in dust, and bonk out through the other gate. And I hope when it's cut, I followed the script absolutely shot by shot. And it must have looked pretty crazy yesterday doing it, because nobody knows exactly what I was up to. But I think when it's cut, it'll look very amusing, and it'll be a hell of a good introduction to Aziz. Hope so.
That was Turton. Turton? McBride. When he first came out, Hamidullah said he was quite a good fellow.
But they all become exactly the same. I give any Englishman 2 years.
The women are worse.
I give them 6 months.
Cut it.
Cut it.
Movies are pictures, you see. You know, I was saying to somebody the other day, it was an actor actually, and they said, "Oh, come on." I said, "Right, quote me some lines of dialogue that you remember from a movie." There was a long hesitation. I said, "Here's looking at you, kid." And then they added Clark Gable's Gone with the Wind. What is it? Frankly, I don't give a damn, something like that.
I don't give a damn.
Yeah, that's right. And I said, now, visuals, pictures. And of course, you're flooded with them. You know, anybody can provide lots of visuals. And I think that's the funny thing about the screen. That's why I like pictures. And I think people remember pictures, not dialogue.
One of the ways he's done this in A Passage to India is by writing in a scene where his characters drive through an Indian bazaar. So what are you going to do here tomorrow?
It's the first real glimpse we have of what the girl calls the real India. And I'm going to bring them down here with all this stuff in the foreground. It'll be much brighter than it is now. And then I shall go into close tracking shots of her taking in everything and glimpses. I'm not quite sure what I'll do. There's dyes, the saris, metal workers, and have a kind of cacophony of sounds. You know, songs passing, going, noise, shouting, horses neighing. So I give her a sort of real hurly-burly of a bazaar so that she hardly knows what's hit her.
Yeah.
Because that is India, this crowded feeling. Hope it works, I don't know yet, of course.
A Passage to India is not a big budget film. When films can cost up to $50 million, this cost 16. Its look, however, is often much more lavish than that would suggest. In the scene where Adela and Ronnie drive through the bazaar, the stores look so exotic they're causing a problem.
I just don't know what to look at.
No, it's very, very good.
Get on and see it with the 65. Right, bring Nigel back.
So, with an even closer lens. Yes.
I thought I had it all set. And we were going to do a shot through the bazaar, you see, quite a long shot following that carriage.
Yeah.
And having laid the track, done everything else, I looked through the camera and I suddenly realized the bazaar's so good, it's so full of color, that your mind goes off the principal action and goes on to the bazaar, and it's like a documentary of the bazaar.
Yeah.
So that put me in one of my panics that I get about once every 2 weeks when I just don't know what to do. So I changed the whole thing, and I'm doing the whole thing close and from their point of view, so it'll be better.
What we're trying to do is to get their colour.
Capturing the feel of an exotic location involves Lean in close collaboration with art director John Box. For his work on David Lean films, Box has won 2 Oscars, and it's he who's designed all the sets on A Passage to India.
Walking through Mysore, there was something rather interesting. There was a sort of roadway going through the market. There were awnings up, they're made out of old sacking, and they're spaced in such a way that you've got stripes, light and shade. And it seemed to be a good idea to send Mrs. Moore and Adela down a similar road. In the moving film, they will be going, that light will play on them. Therefore, any close-up of, for instance, of Adela, you'll be getting the light and shade effect, which should create a sort of something anyhow. We had this idea of introducing the funeral by getting above these shades and shooting down and just being aware of something and the sound of a funeral. And then bring it out into the light. At that moment, Adela passes, juxtaposition, a young girl alive, a corpse.
Ram Nam! Ram Nam!
Go, Chris!
Ram Nam! Ram Nam! Ram Nam!
The other key technician is Eddie Fowley. He's worked on every David Lean film for the last 28 years.
6 feet down.
As property master, he's responsible for dressing the sets John Box has designed.
I've got to bring it to life and put the colour and all the things of everyday life into it, and all the movement and the animals. And so I start by going to the markets and the bazaars, the real things, and looking and see what's good, what's cheap, what's expensive, what's big, what's small.
Take it off. Take it out. Sir?
Yeah, David's eye for detail is total. Nothing goes by, and nothing appears in the film unless it's absolutely correct.
Go and do the flower shop.
We're going to light the fire yet? I'll put some carrots. Where's that?
Eddie Fowle is not only Lean's general right-hand man, he's also his closest friend. Before the film was even financed, he and Lean drove all over India looking for locations. And it was Eddie Fowle who found the key location that brought them to Bangalore.
Well, when I'm going to do a location hunt, I always look, first of all, for the thing which, in my opinion, can't be built. Only by God.
We drove miles and miles all over India, and we were looking for a gigantic rock face. And we came up a road over there. It looked promising. Then we started to climb. It was terribly hot. I was terribly out of breath, as I am rather now. And we came up through that wall, and there was that great mass of rock. I thought we were going to have to go to Ceylon for it, where we did some of one of the treks on River Kwai, but this is much better.
It's here on the mountain that the key event in A Passage to India happens. Aziz, the young Indian doctor, invites Adela and Mrs. Moore on an outing which goes disastrously wrong. Aziz ends up on trial, accused of attempted rape.
You cannot imagine how you honor me. I feel that I am journeying back into my past, and that I'm a Mughal emperor.
That's how I would do it. I don't know whether it's up to where it is.
That's bloody good.
It's Lean's ability to capture the scale and sweep of landscapes like this that has characterized all his films for the last 30 years.
Yeah. And then down we go, keeping that top right the whole time. It's a hell of a good shot. Mm. Let's give him a track, so dark rocks, going out of top right all the way down.
Okay, right.
Look, have a look. And let's keep on with the...
Thomas, thank you. Could you lose that? Sure.
Just, you know, with that top right all the time.
Yeah.
Right down to the tree.
Okay. 760, take one. And action, Mickey.
Eddie, actually, he and his wife came out for about 4 weeks, and they found this place, and then I came up later, and they took me to it. I said, Chum, it's going to be a much bigger film. I can't resist writing to the producers and telling them that it's bigger than they think it's going to be.
What did you mean by that? I mean, why did
bigger?
the sight of that make you think it would be bigger?
Size, landscape, a smell of a country. I don't mean bigness just for the sake of bigness, just the smell of India. I mean, look at this place here.
But you've built this place in the middle of the Hotel
No,
Drive.
but you couldn't build this in London. Look at the light. Listen to the birds. The whole thing's got an atmosphere.
So once you can see your characters in that landscape, you feel that that gives them a size, and that gives the events they pass through a size, and that defines big, does it?
There's an awful fine line between the two, because you've got to be terribly careful not to let the landscape swamp the people. And I'm always having talks with assistant directors that they say, look, shall we put 4 people walking through the back? Now, what happens if you have somebody walking through there? I'm looking at you and something crosses behind you. I'm bound just to flick. My attention just goes for 1 second. And so I try to keep it out, keep that sort of thing out. But, and if I want to show it, I should go long, show the whole damn thing and go bang in again.
On the set of A Passage to India, David Lean is shooting a scene with Alec Guinness.
Train, Margaret!
Guinness has starred in more of Lean's films than any other actor. Here he plays a wise old mystic called Godbole. As the train carrying Mrs. Moore pulls out of Chandrapur station, Godbole mysteriously appears to bid her farewell. The Lean-Guinness partnership is one of the most celebrated and enduring collaborations between an actor and a director in British cinema. It was, in fact, Lean who gave Guinness his first starring role in films.
All right, cut it. How was that?
Stop the train.
How was that?
With the shots involving Peggy Ashcroft finished, Lean is now concentrating on Guinness. He wants Godbole's sudden appearance to have a startling and haunting effect.
Yeah, fine.
No.
Yes, I did it.
Yeah, sure. Come and look at this.
Can we have the stand-in for Sir Alec, please?
Zoom in a bit, will you?
That's all we've got, sir.
That's it. I think that's probably bloody good. Look, Alec, come and look at this. I think closer's rather better. It's rather strange, isn't it? This is just her point of view through the fog. Then,
I think that's
Alec, this,
yeah,
her struggling with the window, down it comes, she looks.
Yeah.
Close shot.
Do I look camera left or right? Not that you would know.
I think you pretty well look at the camera. You do it at the camera, I think. And look, you can't possibly tell if it'd be very close. I think that looks rather good, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it looks marvellous.
Good.
It's not a problem, but I've just got to make up my mind.
Yeah. It's where you
when
step
we went
out.
up the track, this shot, as far as I can make out, was halfway along that wall.
Yeah, I don't think you should put your hands up until you hit the white. This is all one shot. It's where we cut to you that's the query. Half of me says it might be jolly good to cut to you when we're absolutely opposite. And as you come into the white, you step forward and up with your hands.
But I'm not into the white until you're slightly past the door.
That's right, of course not. I think that might look bloody
Frank,
good.
come out a bit. Okay, David?
Yes.
Right, Nick,
Now,
just have Alec
ask Alec if he's ready.
if he's ready, we're just going to do the same thing as before, and David will give a cue.
I'll just say
from the
go,
train. He'll say go,
which means that he raises his hands after that.
Despite similar disagreements on Dr. Zhivago, and even on A Passage to India, Guinness and Lean continue to work with each other. Their mutual affection and respect for each other's work remains unshakable.
Terry, stay out for a minute, please.
Bloody good. Go.
Go!
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
Jolly
Stop
good,
it there.
Alec. That's it. That's going to be it.
What do you want, Nick?
That does work, doesn't it? Look good.
Streaming.
How do you feel about the fog filter? Too strong or
No,
right?
It gives it a bit of...
Good,
I'll
fine.
tell you on the way
Let's have a
there.
go.
It's different.
Let's have a go next time.
Start the train, please. Turn over.
Mark it.
Is it clear?
Yes.
No, I think he's in love with the look. He must be. And after all, you know, that is part of the thing of being a film director, isn't it? I mean, every shot he wants to be a glorious picture.
Go. Clever old bugger.
Right, let's cut.
Very good.
Stop the train.
Tell him very good.
Nick, very, very good. Worked very, very well.
Just tell Alec he must come out 2 foot to his left.
Here we go. Turn over.
Start.
Mark it.
Start the bloody train.
Start the train.
Get ready. Go. Cut it. That's it.
That's very good, Marcus. Very good. Hold it there.
Cut the speed by half.
What?
Cut the speed by half.
Yes, I bet you're right. And you see, I tell you what, Bernie. It goes, now wait a minute. Ronnie turns and goes away. Now she sits quite a time. Train getting faster, 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 faster. Perhaps music, funny note coming up. Looks, cut.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Do you see? So we could, I don't think you'll sort of connect the speeds. Then after, when we cut away, we got back to her, she's fighting with the window, down it goes. She looks, cut closer.
Goodbye.
Lean's about to shoot one of the most memorable scenes in E.M. Forster's novel. It's where East meets West. Dr. Aziz comes to the home of the pro-Indian schoolmaster, Fielding. It's an intimate and subtle scene. We wanted to film Lean working closely with Victor Banerjee, an actor scarcely known to Western audiences.
Victor, how fast can you go?
In the past, when Lean has introduced actors like this into his films, they've often become huge stars. Peter O'Toole, Omar Sharif, and of course Alec Guinness. Lean has never allowed the making of a sensitive scene like this to be filmed.
It's very good of you.
That's right, really sit down. Very good. Good, Victor. That's good, isn't it? Works. Right.
When I started talking about casting, I said to them, what we need is a kind of young Charlie Chaplin. Somebody who gets buffeted by fate. That's Aziz, you know, it's all over the place. And he's very, very funny in the book.
Hope we're not getting too bloody long. That. Now.
Mr. Fielding?
Try again, Victor. Try the bat. No interest in the Indian stuff. That's right, that. Yeah, that's good. Good. And then, well, I think I'll sit there. And hear the singing there, yeah.
You don't want that?
Yeah, sure. Now.
Mr. Fielding? I've long been wanting to meet you. I've heard many times about your kind heart and your sociability. And I've seen you in the bazaar. I say, Mr. Fielding, before you come out, guess what I look like? Jolly good. What's yours?
It was a very mechanical sort of thing. There were several things I had to do. There were several lines that I had to say, and cover it and go from point A to B to C to D to E, turn at E, sit at F, and move to picture G. You know, I mean, all that in one. And his script had said, you say these lines and then you move, which is the way I was playing it at the beginning. And he saw a hole in the scene, and he felt, you know, neither of us could really put our finger on what was wrong.
What would happen, I wonder, if you sat down? That. Then the books. Mr. Fielding, I've heard your kind heart and sociability. Oh, really? Track, singing. That sounds nice. And then, over, and what would that, Maggie, let's have a look, love. Put that here. Look, Victor, come and have a look.
And we tried it. And sure enough, I mean, from there, we went on and on and on until he eventually contributed a great deal more.
I think when I start on a film, I certainly know the parts better than the actors. So I can certainly talk to them. I can tell them what my view of the part was, and if they go away from it, I tell them why I think it's wrong.
I have long been wanting to meet you. I have heard many times about your kind heart and sociability. My dear fellow. And I have seen you in the bazaar.
It's kind of tickling a talent. Don't know how I do it. It'd be quite different from actor to actor.
Now transfer. That's right. Good. I think that's going to work. Now look, Victor.
Yes.
There's a more intimate way of doing this business.
First bit.
Sociability.
Yes.
It's a little bit
it's all
claiming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Fielding? Yes. I have heard many times about your...
That's it.
I have heard
That's
many
it.
times about your... What? I have long been wanting to meet you.
And you mean it?
Yes, I have long been wanting to meet you. I have heard many times about your kind heart and your sociability.
Don't run it into one. I've heard many times about your kind heart. To us Indians, you're really saying.
Yes.
Kind heart and sociability.
And I've seen you in the bazaar.
And then Yeah, sure. Right, try again, Victor. Actors loathe being given intonations. And I often do, because I obviously hear the lines before they have even read them. And I find it very difficult not to interrupt an actor. Don't you say also?
Because I timed it wrong, that's why I shouted it.
Right.
Okay, right back again.
Mr. Fielding, I'm going to make a confession to you. Okay. Mr. Fielding? Okay. Right.
Mr. Fielding. Yes. I've long been wanting to meet you.
Good.
I've heard many times about your kind heart.
That's it.
And your sociability. And I have seen you in the bazaar.
And another disclosure.
Yeah, and I've seen you in the bazaar.
Correct. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Okay, let's lay tracks and all the rest of it. Fine. Very good, Victor. That's going to be okay. You know, you've been watching the first day of a brand new sequence. It comes right at the beginning of the film, and it's the meeting of Aziz and Fielding, one of the two principal characters. Now, we've already shot 2/3 of the film, and here we are going right back to the beginning. It probably doesn't look it, but everybody's as nervous as a cat, especially the actors. I mean, old Aziz here, Victor Banerjee, he looks quite calm. I said, are you all right this morning? He said, no, I'm terribly nervous. And I haven't known a good actor yet whose palms aren't sweating on the first day of a new sequence. Always happens. Only the jerks are confident.
Well, I mean, that's, yes, it's a take mine, take mine. Now, I tried that a million times. I've tried that at night, early in the morning. I've tried it over and over and over again, and I've never got it right. The odd occasion under a shower or, you know, jogging in the morning, I get it right, but it never comes back to me again. And I put it out of my mind, and I went through with the take.
I said, Mr. Fielding. Yes? Before you come out, guess what I look like?
You're about 5 feet 10 inches tall.
Jolly good.
I can see that much through the glass. Glass?
Anything wrong?
I've just broken my back collar.
Take mine. Take mine.
Have you a spare one?
Yes. Just 1 minute.
Not if you're wearing it.
Got it? I don't know what it is, something I like all of it, except take mine.
Yeah.
Take mine. It's,
If I could say one, it'd be a little easier.
What?
If I could say it once.
That might be it.
Yes, it would help.
I'd love to see you hesitate a minute, you know, get the idea. Blast! What is it?
Yeah.
Take mine. I suppose I can get it out, something like that.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
great.
I better get out of the light. Get that in your head. You know.
Oh, take mine.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, good. And don't forget that quick look down. You did a jolly good, 5 foot 9 inches tall. Oh, okay.
The first take was absolutely all right, but for that line. He said, I don't like that. I mean, what's wrong? So I told him, I said, I can say it once, but I can't say it twice. I mean, so would you mind if I... You see, you've got to be very, very careful. I mean, he will not allow you to you know, either omit or even add a single word. But he agreed. He said, yeah, say, take mine. So that solved that.
Anything wrong?
I just broke my back collar snap.
Oh. Take mine. Yes, 1 minute.
Not if you're wearing it.
No, here in my pocket.
Nobody carries a spare stud in his pocket.
Cut it.
Oh, I always, in case of...
Cut it. Hold that position. Is it easy to go into complete blackout, is he?
That's where he ended up.
Oh, yes, that's all right. Good.
Picture and...
That's good, good, fine. Better do one more in case of some sort of cock-up. Right. One more. Maggie, what's the line? What's his line before?
I can see that much through the glass. Blast.
And
Anything
then,
wrong?
and before that?
It's jolly good. You're about 5 feet 9
Jolly
inches
good.
tall.
Jolly good. We go from jolly good, James.
He's very impressed by the mechanical. He gives you things that impress him most about an actor are do it, photograph it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. So he's tremendously impressed by the technical aspect of acting, not the spontaneous aspect, not the internal aspect of acting. He's very impressed, I think, by the external aspect of acting. But he, you know, obviously, because he's so intelligent, he has an understanding of what is true. I'll give you that as well. He's not frightfully interested in the process.
Do that again for me, will you? Big, just don't take the stud out. Mime it all. James, just go back.
Here it is.
Many thanks. How'd you do? Come and
How'd
sit
you
down.
do that? Here it is. Just do it. I always, in case of emergency. Maggie, I think we're going to have to let him go out a picture
Yes.
and cut to
Yeah.
James coming out of the door. Do you see?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always, in case of emergency. Here it is.
Many thanks. How'd you
Can I do that again? Let me look through the camera. Here it is, like that.
Come up here, it's easier.
Is it? Right. Right, focus. Right. Righto.
Nobody carries a spare.
Nobody carries a spare stud in their pocket.
I always, in case of emergency. Here it is.
I can't operate in low gear.
How'd you do? Come and sit down while I finish dressing. You don't mind the unconventionality.
Not at all.
Just do I always, in case of... Here it is.
I always, in case of emergency.
Nobody.
Here it is.
Many thanks.
Ernie.
You.
Do that once more.
I think I'll come a little bit sooner at you. That's what it feels.
Sure,
I always, in
we've
case
got
of
to do
emergency.
this. Come here.
Here it is.
Do the wide angle. Do the wide angle, and then shove on the 40, just before his retreat. Yeah, just do that once more, will you?
Yeah.
It's a hunch that I've got, and I just know that there's a certain time when he's interested in the acting, and that's at the moment that he's giving his fullest attention to the acting. A lot of time he's interested in the purely technical, and of course when the take is on, he's watching a lot of different things. And I don't know how his mind works, but I have that feeling, and it's obvious that he is looking for selected moments. He's looking just for very, very few moments. And people probably told you that sometimes he even walks in front of the camera before the scene ends, because he knows that he's got it, you know. And actors might be going on, doing their stuff, and David will be walking in the frame.
767, take one.
Lean is ready to shoot Victor Banerjee's entrance. He's aware, however, that the light is fading fast.
Victor.
Mr. Fielding? Mr. Fielding?
Got it. James, a bit more definite movement for turning off the shower.
What's the timing of it?
Not very good. I'll have to give it to you. I'll go like that.
It'll be about 3...
Victor, sorry, James, just take the showering position, will you? That's right. Now, come forward a bit. Now bend backwards and do it. Good, that's it. And then the movement of turning it off. Right. And then give it a later cue
As he stops at the door.
Just before he stops in the door. He walks forward.
Okay. 767, take two.
Back direction, Nick.
Victor? I'm sorry. Can those boys be a bit thicker on the ground?
Yeah?
At the back there. They look very good if there's a little group walking by. About...
Cut there.
Just before I say, as I say Victor, they should move.
Okay, can you get everybody in their start position? Take that large group and we'll come down the steps. Right, quickly, Nick. Get them to run to their first positions. Ready? Right, here we go.
767, take 4.
And background action.
Victor?
Mr. Fielding? Mr. Fielding?
Have we cut it?
Yes, what?
We just tripped over the carpet.
I thought it was rather good.
Sorry.
Start again.
Number 1, please. Remember, Aziz, this is what's happening.
Right, let's go.
Can I move the Marley 6 inches that way, Roy?
Yes. How's that? Victor, just see you on your stopping mark, will you a minute? See if the Marley's
Try
right.
to get the sun to hit.
I know. That's all. That's fine.
Yeah, that's good. Right, let's go. Stand by.
Check the reflector, Billy.
Sorry, Ernie.
Come on. Lights going. Come on, stop talking. What?
We're going to run that right to the end, aren't we?
Don't worry about it too much.
Here we go. Stand by. All set. Roy.
Yes.
And turn over.
Mark it.
767, take 5.
We'll do the water again.
Do the water again, Aziz.
It's so lovely when that water's going.
Clear out, please.
Let's go.
Turn over.
Victor.
Mr. Fielding? Mr. Fielding?
Hello? Is that Dr. Aziz?
Yes. I'm afraid I am early.
That's fine. I won't be a jiffy. Just make yourself at home.
Yeah, really, Mr. Fielding?
Cut it. That's good.
We'll cut that.
Did Aziz cover Fielding?
No.
Good. Well, that's it, I think.
Yes.
Anybody miserable?
Right, just a quick wild track. Keep
Ernie,
clear.
Ernie, are
Everybody
you
get still as well.
unhappy or not? What wild track, for Christ's sake? Come on then, get on with it quick.
The shooting of A Passage to India is now complete. David Lean is at Pinewood Studios, doing what he likes best, editing it all together. Many people believe that it's his skill as an editor, learned some 50 years ago, that makes him such a great director.
Let's see the falling off the bike. In this film, we've taken about 1,400 separate shots. And it's like putting a giant jigsaw together. And it's this fitting of the jigsaw together that fascinates me as far as the film's concerned. This sequence that I'm doing at the moment, some people, the collector, who was the sort of boss of the district in those days, leaves the railway station and he enters the bazaar section of the town. The they see a couple of bicycles in front of them. They nearly crash into them, but the cyclist falls off, picks himself up, and he's the hero. Now, I could do that all in a long shot. I think it'd be pretty boring. Now, I've taken a series of shots, about 8, I should think. Here we see, you'll see, now the 2 people in the back of the car. Couple waving. Then there's 2 people on a bike. Cut back to the couple. She clutches the man, says, "Look out." Bikes swerve. She screams, and the bike falls over, you see. Now, and this is running it at normal speed. Looks quite different, you see. Look. And there's Aziz. Now, I think that's much more interesting than showing it in one single long shot. In fact, I know it is. But it appears on the screen as if it is one shot. It isn't. It's about 6 shots, cut very fast, one after the other, and sound effects binding them all up. And if you know your stuff about cutting, it really does look like one shot. You don't say, oh, there's the man watching, there's the man on the cyclist, there's that. At speed, it looks like one continuous piece of action. The number of times I've come out of a cinema where there's been a rather well-cut sequence, and I've heard people say that was very good photography. It's to hell with the photographer, it's the cutter.
A Passage to India has now been edited, and Lean is working on the music with composer Maurice Jarre. Jarre's done the music for all his films since Lawrence, including, of course, Lara's theme in Dr. Zhivago.
Maybe we should lose the music at one point.
Yeah, you know, I think I like that for the beginning. Don't be frightened about making it a little romantic. When she's going through that grass, it isn't a girl going on a nice country bicycle ride. There's something in the air that she doesn't know. So I think it's rather good to start a little bit, same thing, touch of romantic though. And I think, and personally, I would lose it when you see the camera go like that and disclose that track.
On the beginning, maybe we should have something less fast. You mean like...
Lean hasn't in fact worked with Jarre like this for 14 years, for it's been that long since he directed a film.
When I'm writing a script for David, I write it with David. That is to say, we live in the same building for a year, and we work at it day by day.
When we've finished writing the script, when Robert's finished writing it down, I go off by myself with a typewriter, and I start page 1, scene 1, and I will write close up so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. 2, medium shot. So-and-so sits down at a table and does this, and I'm sitting there at the typewriter. I'm trying to visualize pictures that will slot together and look as if they're a continuous movement.
I would like to take you back, David, to your own start as a cutter, because I've always understood that you place enormous emphasis on this question of cutting.
Yes, well, personally, I enjoy cutting almost as much as direction. I think I find it a fascinating job. Most people, I think that cutting is a question of cutting out things. It's nothing to do with cutting out things at all. It's the juxtaposition of pictures. And you can make or mar a film by cutting. You can't make a bad film good. You can make it tolerable sometimes, and you can certainly ruin a good film.
But as a member of the public sitting there watching your film go through, would I recognize a piece of good cutting?
I hope not. Like all technique, one should be completely unconscious of it. And in fact, one should imagine that a film was started to be shot in the morning or whenever the film opens, and it was a continuous process right up to the end. No, you shouldn't be conscious of it at all.
Let's see the falling off the bike. In this film, we've taken about 1,400 separate shots, and it's like putting a giant jigsaw together. And it's this fitting of the jigsaw together that fascinates me as far as the film's concerned. This sequence that I'm doing at the moment, I could do all in a long shot. I think it'd be pretty boring. Now, I've taken a series of shots, about 8, I should think. Here we see, you'll see. Now, the 2 people in the back of the car. Couple waving. Then there's 2 people on the bike. Cut back to the couple. She clutches the man, says, "Look out." Bike swerve. She screams, and the bike falls over, do you see? Now, and this is running it at normal speed. Looks quite different, you see. Look. And there's Aziz. Now, I think that's much more interesting than showing it in one single long shot. In fact, I know it is. But it appears on the screen as if it is one shot. It isn't. It's about 6 shots, cut very fast, one after the other, and sound effects binding them all up. And if you know your stuff about cutting, it really does look like one shot. You don't say, "Oh, there's the man watching, there's the man on the cyclist, there's that." At speed, it looks like one continuous piece of action. And the number of times I've come out of a cinema where there's been a rather well-cut sequence, and I've heard people say, "That was very good photography." It's to hell with the photographer, it's the cutter. I love being behind the camera. I love putting images up on the screen. I get a tremendous kick of seeing a sequence cut. I'm in the middle of it now, putting music to a film, getting the dialogue, balance right. I find it immensely exciting. It's been my life.
Across the plains of Spain, an army marches. Marshaled by David Lean, the award-winning director of such motion picture classics as Great Expectations, The Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia. David Lean's newest motion picture is Dr. Zhivago, based on the celebrated novel by Boris Pasternak. For Dr. Zhivago, David Lean is recreating the vast turmoil of the Russian Revolution. In directing it, Lean is, as he says, in a hunch-playing mood, ready to gamble on the new and the untried. Dr. Zhivago is a different kind of story, demanding a fresh and exciting approach. The story of a man living through the violence of war through the angry passions of conflicting loves. To tell this story, which covers a span of almost 40 years, David Lean needed new faces that could bring youth to the early sequences and a mature acting talent to the later scenes. For Dr. Zhivago, David Lean has assembled a galaxy of new stars. Omar Sharif plays Yuri Zhivago. Geraldine Chaplin, daughter of the great Charlie Chaplin, plays Zhivago's young wife, Tonya. Julie Christie appears as Lara, a woman whose love Zhivago can neither escape nor accept. Tom Courtney appears as Pasha, a young idealist who marries Lara, and then, under pressure of the brutalities of revolution, becomes a feared rebel leader. The cast is completed by such notable veterans as Rod Steiger in the role of Komarovsky, Lara's tormentor. Alec Guinness as Zhivago's mysterious half-brother, Evgraf. For Zhivago's father-in-law, Sir Ralph Richardson. Siobhan McKenna as Tonia's mother, and Rita Tushingham as the illegitimate child of Zhivago and Lara. With The Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean made news by completing truly memorable motion pictures, in spite of hazardous locations. With Dr. Zhivago, he faced a new problem: recreating Russia outside the Soviet Union. Though invited to Moscow to discuss the film, Lean knew that the Russian officials simply wanted to talk him out of producing a story that had been banned by the Kremlin. So Moscow has risen anew on the Spanish plains. Here, a faithful replica of the Russian capital has been built, complete to the smallest detail. The vast plains of Spain provide the director with spaces that suggest the Russian expanses through which Zhivago moves as he tries to escape war and revolution. Armed with a script by world-famous playwright Robert Bolt, with locations chosen and sets built, with a cast assembled, with all the elements of the production of a major motion picture put together, after years of preparation, David Lean was ready to commit the story of Dr. Zhivago to film. The army that David Lean and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer have deployed across the Spanish plains has spent the last year creating a motion picture that is destined to add the name Dr. Zhivago to the list of film classics.
I'm Robert Osborne.
This is David Lean, Academy Award-winning director of such motion picture classics as Great Expectations, Bridge on the River Kwai, Lawrence of Arabia. And now, Dr. Zhivago. Dr. Zhivago represents a new direction for David Lean. After spending 10 years making heroic adventure pictures, he wanted to direct a love story. And Dr. Zhivago is a love story, a great love story, set against a vast background of war and revolution. A story of the angry passions of conflicting loves. Based on the controversial novel by Boris Pasternak, who won a Nobel Prize for his work, Dr. Zhivago is one of the great stories of the 20th century. To adapt this mammoth novel of 700 pages into a screenplay, David Lean chose Robert Bolt, world-famous playwright and the writer who had fashioned the script for Lawrence of Arabia. The script completed, director Lean then turned to the job of casting.
As the characters gradually took shape in the script, we naturally started thinking more and more who was to portray them on the screen, and the big question mark, who was to play Dr. Zhivago himself.
The poet, the gentle figure, in love with life, in search of himself, was only one man, Omar Sharif. Sharif had worked with Lean in Lawrence of Arabia.
The next thing was to find a screen wife for Omar. My eye had been caught in several magazines by some publicity pictures of Charlie Chaplin's daughter, Geraldine. I saw her, talked to her. She looked far too young for the part, but she had a kind of freshness that I liked very much and a kind of dignity. And I did a screen test.
Left 11, take 1.
All right, dear, when you like.
If you could see how hard we have been working here, I know you would forgive me, dear, for not writing more regularly.
When was that written?
July the 20th.
8 weeks.
But now the war seems really to have stopped. The hospital is emptying, and I shall have more time. I may even get time to write some verse, if I've not forgotten how to. I do hope so.
So, we went for Geraldine. The woman's part in this film that any actress would give her eye teeth to play is Lara. And I saw a film, and I saw a girl walking down a street in that film, and I couldn't take my eyes off her.
So Julie Christie became Lara, the violent, sensual, sensitive girl, Zhivago's great love and mistress. As Lara's tormentor, Komarovsky, director Lean cast Rod Steiger. Alec Guinness was chosen to play Zhivago's mysterious half-brother, Evgraf. Tom Courtney plays Lara's husband, Pasha, the dedicated young revolutionary leader. Siobhan McKenna and Ralph Richardson portray Zhivago's adopted parents, Rita Tushingham, Zhivago and Lara's illegitimate child.
Having some idea of the principal members of the cast, one's then got to think of the scenery in which they play their scenes.
Dr. Zhivago is a big motion picture. Russia is big too, a country so vast that it haunts the soul of its people. So David Lean had to travel far to find a place to make his picture, somewhere which would capture the special Russian feeling. After a journey of 10,000 miles, Spain was chosen as the location. The Spanish plains became the Russian steppes. And Moscow rose anew outside Madrid. Correct to the last detail. But a director does not work alone. Scores of talented people come together to create the settings and backgrounds against which the story unfolds. Costumes and accessories are designed and fitted. And above all, the flavor of the times, Russia in the early part of this century, must be captured.
people come. The technicians and craftsmen, the artists and actors, and the director join together for the task of creating the atmosphere and feeling of Dr. Zhivago. There was the challenge of capturing the poignancy of a man who loves two remarkable women. Of balancing the epic grandeur of the story of a great revolution against the subtle shades of personal relationships. Bringing to life the indomitable spirit of refugees in their desperate flight. Of capturing the flame of a poet's tender love and his searing reactions to blood and war. At last there comes a time when the director senses he has succeeded, when he knows that what began as an idea on paper has caught fire on film, and his picture breathes with life and love. A good film becomes a great film with an inspired director, and during the filming of Dr. Zhivago, inspiration maintained itself at a peak. Dr. Zhivago is being hailed by those who have seen it as another David Lean masterpiece. The might of war. The majesty of love. The monumental motion picture of our time. Dr. Zhivago.
In a remote corner of Indochina, one of the world's outstanding filmmakers, David Lean.
The director of Dr. Zhivago is David Lean, a master storyteller and film craftsman who had already won Academy Awards for directing Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia. David Lean's career started out modestly enough. He apprenticed in every department of the Gaumont British Film Studio, but quickly rose to become one of the world's most respected directors, one of the rare few who could put together a movie as massive as Zhivago. I first worked with David when we spent a year making Lawrence in Jordan, England and Spain. He loved cinema more than anything. He breathed and lived cinema. And when he was on the set, he was all cinema. There was no chats about other things or jokes. It was a religious, a little bit set, you know, it was awesome.
He was a wonderful movie maker and very loyal to his crew. He had a prop man who was a genius. He was a Cockney named Eddie. And he with Lean, and Lean has his own generosity in his own way. And Eddie was always enamored of Mr. Lean's Rolls Royce. One day Mr. Lean just gave it to him.
We weren't friends during the film because he had this theory that you don't see the actors during the film. He'd always live in another hotel. He wouldn't be with us. He wouldn't see us outside of shooting. And I asked him afterwards, I said, but why? Why we're such good friends now? He said, I didn't want, you were a group of people with very, very strong personalities, and I did not want your personalities to influence the characters that I have in my head for this movie. And so I didn't want to see any of you.
David was a perfectionist, a real stickler for details. Everything from having the actors wear period underwear that would never be seen to giving the rats in the scene a screen test.
I don't think David Lean liked me very much after a while. Everybody approached the script like it was the Bible, right?
One of the wonderful things about David Lean, one of the things I most admire about him, is he never gave up until he got what he wanted. And sometimes he didn't know how to get it, but he knew always what he didn't want, and there were no compromises, and I think that's a great lesson.
And nothing would stop David from shooting, not even an accident on the set.
The woman who comes running with the baby in the burnt village, and she gives the baby, and Zhivago takes the baby and then takes her and reaches out his hand towards her and reaches and pulls her on the train. Well, we did that in a real station with a real train, the train running. And he took her hand and she went under. She went under the train and she got her legs very badly. They weren't cut off, but they were really badly. And the shot that's in the film where he puts out his hand and he brings her up, and that is the shot where she went down. He used that. And everyone hated David Lean the day after that, because you know what he did? He said, well, what could you do? They took her out, they rushed her to the ambulance, and David just stood there and he said, dress the double. And we continued with the double. Everyone said, you know, how dare, but what could he, you're making a movie, what could he do? Call the day's rest? No, he said, dress the double.
Perhaps David didn't show it on the set, but privately, he was very concerned about the woman and made many phone calls to the hospital asking about her. Despite his immense success as a filmmaker, David could never quite believe his good fortune and always considered himself rather lucky to have had the chance to make his movies. At his funeral in April 1991, I was one of hundreds who gathered to pay tribute to him. For my part, I read a passage from Dr. Zhivago. Once the script was underway, David and John Box packed their bags for a 10,000-mile location scouting expedition. Finding locations proved especially difficult because, as you can see from the sketches John Box drew before production began, Zhivago covers so many places, so many years, and all the seasons.
You can't create a landscape, you've got to find it and make it work. There's certain basic principles about Dr. Zhivago. It is set in Russia. That's a big country. The scale is critical for telling this very particular story. And then there's the practical issue. You've got to have locomotives, steam locomotives. You've got to have a lot of horses. You're going to need a lot of fine riders. And it's a film, because Russia's a big place, there's a lot of people there. You need big crowds.
Discharges. Emplacements.
We started in Yugoslavia, had a film business, had studios, had steam locomotives. It did not feel right. And this word feel is very important because it's atmosphere. It's not just sets or location. You've got to create a world in which actors play out those parts. And you've got to help the actors. It does help them if you get it right. We next moved north, Finland and Sweden, obviously for winter and for snow. And they didn't have the studios, this, that, and the other we would require because we were a big movie. So back I come to David and tell him it won't work. This question, John, where are we going to make this film? And I looked him straight in the eyeball and said, Spain.
Spain offered studio facilities within easy reach of landscapes that Zhivago would need.
It has the size, it has the scale we require, it has the locomotives. It has extras, it has sophisticated construction and technical people there. And it would look excellent on the screen.
And Moscow rose anew outside Madrid.
It was here, on this 10-acre site in the small Madrid suburb called Cañas, that John Box recreated Zhivago's Moscow. It took 18 months and 800 workers to construct the giant set. The Kremlin dominated streets that even featured 2 working trolley lines. The architecture and even the window dressing were all painstakingly researched and recreated.
It was incredible because the 2 streets, there was the big street, the beautiful street, and then there were the poor street where Laura lived. And there were 2 streets that were parallel. And all the houses, you know how mostly film sets, they're just, you look behind them and they're bits of sticks coming out. All the houses were real houses. All the interiors of our house, the Gromyko house, were shot on that set.
With a horse-drawn sleigh, the bygone Moscow of the early 1900s makes a striking setting for photographers and journalists from all corners of the world who come to photograph and interview Geraldine Chaplin.
For the scenes in the countryside, the production moved 150 miles north of Madrid to Soria. Here's Julie sunning herself while we wait to shoot the wagon caravan scene.
It was unbelievable. So you'd be outside on this plain in Soria. So hot, I can't tell you, not a tree, nothing, except the false trees, which were for the film.
Soria was also where Dr. Zhivago's most recognizable set was built, the hauntingly beautiful Ice Palace.
The amazing thing in that picture to me is the Ice Palace, which is made out of beeswax. I mean, John Box, the designer, was incredible on that picture.
Highly emotional. These 2 key characters come back there, and they go in. What are they going to find in there? I didn't really know how to handle it, but then I suddenly saw some reference of Scott's last days in the Antarctic in the room, and it showed quite a small hole, and the wind had blown the snow and ice through it, and the snow and ice had made strange shapes, and that gave me my clue. Take the set. It's going to be a bit unreal, but it's going to be real at the same time. Ice it up. And I go to Eddie Fowley in props, special effects and everything. We just did it very simply. We had very hot white wax. Eddie went round with a bucket and a big mug, and he threw it all over the architecture, the furniture and everything else. When I thought it looked right, I hit it with nearly freezing water with a pump, so it just froze. And you dabbed a bit of mica on it later and that sort of thing. Seemed to work. It had an effect on the actors.
We needed to shoot in that particular place the 4 seasons. So we had to shoot scenes where it was winter, all snowed up. We had some spring scenes, so we had the special effects had to put leaves on the trees and paint them green and put flowers. And then we had the autumn, and then they went to paint the leaves in the autumn colors. So it was all done by hand, literally.
One morning we'd come in and it would be spring. I don't know how, they'd like fairies. And next day, because we were doing all the stuff that was shot there at one go, next day we'd come in, it'd be autumn. They'd sprayed the trees, pulled up the plants. Next day it would be winter. Snow on the ground, icicles hanging.
And there were scenes shot up there when the temperature was over 100 Fahrenheit, which were snow scenes. But there was awful problems with the landscape at the back. We had to roll out miles of white plastic and cover it with white marble dust. And we had to pay attention to the details of frosting up close shots.
For the scenes showing my escape from the Red troops, David wanted us to really feel the cold of inner Russia. So he took me and the crew to Finland, near the Arctic Circle and 10 miles from the Russian border. And instead of having the Spanish army as extras, we used Lapland gypsies. Here we also celebrated David's 57th birthday. One thing about the location, we didn't have to act cold here. It was often 40 degrees below.
We could not do big scenes, there had to be small scenes. But we very much wanted, with our artificial winter, to get a bit of real winter into it. It helped. It was just 2 weeks to get a bit of what you might call as near to Russia as we could get.
But what they hadn't worked out, accurately I mean, is the thickness of the ice. Now, it was very cold. Presumably, the ice was very thick. And we had these kitchens set up, trucks with cooking and making tea all day and coffee. And everybody had a heater, you know, for between scenes. We used to sit and put something to heat ourselves. And so what was happening is every day the ice was melting. But we didn't realize quite. And those kitchen trucks kept getting lower and lower. And at some point, there was somebody said, hey, wait a minute, you know, this thing we could all go right through the ice. And they stuck a thing in to see how much was left. And there wasn't that much left. I mean, it was time to move.
That's 12, take one.
Shooting began in December 1964 and continued through October of 1965. We did the funeral scene first, and David cast my own son Tarek to play the part of young Yuri. David chose Nicholas Rogue, a brilliant English cameraman, to be the cinematographer on Zhivago. Nick had been a second unit cameraman on Lawrence. But Lean's demanding sense of aesthetics soon ended their collaboration.
Nick Rogue was the first cameraman, and he was wonderful, but they didn't get on. Nick Rogue had his ideas of how certain scenes should be shot, and David Lean, I overheard one thing once where David Lean was saying, I want all the ugliness done in beautiful light. I want all the killings, that killing in the cornfield of those poor boys who were just schoolboys, military school. He said, I want that to be beautiful, to be dazzling, to be rich, to be light for a love scene. And I want the love scenes in horrible, cold. He wanted the contrast. And Nick Rogue couldn't, he wanted to light the love scenes, oh, so beautifully and soft. He said, no, I want them hard. And they fought and fought about that, about the moods. And eventually one day there was, and Nick Rogue was out and Freddie Young was in.
Freddie Young was the cameraman David and I had worked with on Lawrence. He was a wonderful person and shared David's vision for the film. The film itself was shot in 35mm Panavision. The 70mm Super Panavision process that Lean had used on Lawrence was deemed too expensive.
Look, Sasha.
For this shot of the town of Yuriatin under siege, David had a crew burn 10 tons of old rubber tires. Color was an element that David and John Box used in subtle ways to enhance a scene. For example, the first few times the audience sees the Moscow streets, they appear almost black and white.
We decided to take all the color out of that street. It was monochrome, black and white. It was done on purpose, so the impact of the revolution came the first red flag. Very important.
John Box also painted the front of Strelnikov's train red to make Tom Courtney's character more threatening.
And those details, first red flag, red train, anything you can do, snow blowing, leaves blowing, sunflowers weeping.
This is the sunflower John is talking about. After Lara leaves the hospital, the despondent, love-struck Yuri walks back alone through the room. David had propman Eddie Fowley attach fine threads to the sunflower's petals and pull on them to make it seem as if the sunflower were weeping too. The camera work was also so designed to show how Yuri Zhivago saw the world. David made me play Yuri as an observer.
I will tell you a story. When I arrived to meet David Lean, he said, I'm going to ask you to do something extremely difficult for an actor to do. I want you to do nothing at all. At all. Not to emote, not to have any reaction, not to do anything at all. And I said, why is that? And he said, because when we were writing the script with Robert, our problem was how to show in a film that a man is a poet. We can't have him reciting poetry to say this man is a poet. So we decided that the whole film would be seen through his eyes. You will be in every scene practically, but it will always be the other person's scene, the other actor's scene. And you have to be patient, you have to do nothing. I used to listen to people who went to see the dailies, the rushes. They used to say, oh, wasn't Julie Christie wonderful? Wasn't Rod Steiger fantastic? Wasn't Tom Courtenay? Wasn't Geraldine extraordinary? They kept speaking about the other actors, and I never heard anyone saying, wasn't Omar wonderful? And I got more and more worried that I wasn't doing anything. And I had a sort of nervous breakdown one night, and I called David Lean, and I said, David, you were wrong. You shouldn't have chosen me. I'm terrible. I'm not doing it right. And he came to see me, which was very rare at night when David would come out of his bed and go and see someone. And he said, you don't trust me. You don't trust me. I told you. He said, you do what I tell you. And if I'm right, all through the film, I don't want anyone to think that Zhivago is wonderful. But if I do it right, when the curtain comes down, they will think of you more than anyone else.
Are you concerned with money as a director?
Well, you always have the pressure of money behind you, because making a film is a very expensive business, and if you've got an expensive cast, it can go up to... I have worked on films that the running cost is £2,000 a day. Now, if when you're making that film you hear those pounds clicking into a till all the time, you can lose your head.
How's that, Freddie?
Good. Now I've got to you sitting, Omar.
He's a man who's very easy to hate. In other words, it is very easy to hate David and very difficult to like him. He's a very hard man, a very selfish man, who has no pity for anyone and none for himself either, which is a very rare thing. He has no self-pity and no self-indulgence. And therefore it is very difficult for him to pity anybody else or to feel sorry for anybody, however tired they may be. He considers everybody on the set, everybody who's helping to make the film, as objects rather than as people. They are the things that are making his film. And, well, you can see how easy it is if you think that he's considering you as an object, how easy it is to be terribly unhappy and rather hate him for it. I know that I have, at the end of many days shooting, felt terrible hate for him. And I know, for instance, most of the people who have worked with him and who work with him rather dislike him because he drives them too hard and he uses them.
Now, the $64,000 question, of course, was who played Zhivago. Now, Zhivago's a very passive part, and I think he's a poet and a doctor, but the fatal pitfall, I think, would have been to cast too much with the type. If I'd had a very studious young man, I think he'd tend to be a bore in the picture, and so I thought I will go for immense good looks. And I thought of Omar, because he'd played this sheikh in Lawrence who came out of the Mirage. And he's a very sensitive actor. And we happen to work very well together. He catches on, and I think it works. And I thought I could get this Russian poet out of him. And I backed that hunch. A lot of people thought I was mad.
He never loses his temper. I've very rarely seen him lose his temper. He's just more or less seems to be at the same pitch, sometimes terribly worried, obviously, but more or less at the same pitch. But he's certainly intimate. Not a man, but I mean, director, very intimate. I don't know him socially, and I only know him as a director, because he's very quiet, retiring, leads a very retiring life, as far as I can see. I mean, I don't know, he might be up every night and boozing away, but I don't think so. He takes you away and sort of quietly talks to you about exactly what he wants, and then he'll say to everybody, now shut up and go away and leave it.
And look, thousands of coffers at the back. Get them all up.
Okay, just right. Let's get everybody up and start some hands to be on.
You know, all the wanderers, all of them, out.
Now, very quiet, Silencio.
All right, Omar. Action.
I suppose I don't have much contact with actors off the set because I have so much contact with them on the set. I'm, as it were, trying to get things out of them. I'm squeezing them a little. I'm encouraging them. I'm a general sort of wet nurse to actors.
MGM welcomed Lean's decision to film the bulk of Dr. Zhivago in Spain, a country that hasn't yet priced itself out of the epic market. Lean was able to hire local extras at 9 shillings a day. Stunt horsemen cost a tenth of what they would in Britain. Lean needed snow, hundreds of tons of it, so the entire output of a local marble quarry was bought and crushed into white powder, which was scattered over this Spanish plain in high summer to recreate Russia in midwinter. A forest of trees was sprayed with white plastic snow. He needed a cold winter mist, so 100 German smoke machines were brought in to do the job. It all looked expensive and would have been anywhere else in the world, but this was Spain. In all, this set cost just £2,000 to erect. Lean was hard at work.
Omar can do it. You're hard.
Yesterday I was out on Country Road with 400 soldiers and a cart. Now, I had to make a scene out of 400 soldiers and a cart. It's not all that easy. It takes time. But once I've decided on the plan, we're off and we shoot fast. And that's it. And of course, there's this awful pressure of money all the time, which if I thought about it too much, it'd drive me insane. I always imagine, if I'm not careful, of some ghastly fruit machine with dollars clicking through it and spilling onto the floor every second.
Action! Try it again.
With 2/3 of the film shot, it became clear to MGM that Lean might present them not only with a box office success, but with a film that could win an Academy Award. And an Oscar could be worth $5 million at the box office.
After, Good.
Okay. Open the doors, turn on the fans.
Open the doors and turn the fans on, boys.
The pace was stepped up to complete the picture before the end of the year and so qualify for the next awards. By this time, Lean himself was working 16 or 18 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Generally lose, I don't know, about 2 stone during the picture. One's tummy goes, one's in great physical shape, and after about a week of getting up at 11, one feels fine. But it's a pretty killing job. I haven't had a Sunday off, for instance, for, well, as long as I can remember. I go into the cutting rooms when the unit have a Sunday off, and it's pretty tough, but I get very excited by making a movie, and I suppose it's a kind of nervous energy. I'm tired now, as I said to you before, but I suppose the nerve of that infernal machine wakes me up.
At the end of September, Lean's camera turned for the last time. The studio lights went out, the props were taken away, the actors went home to Hollywood, Cairo, Rome and London. The technicians cleared up, and then they too went home to Penge, Pinner, Braintree and Horsham. Everybody was happy. The deadline for the Oscars had been met. And shortly after everybody had left, the first advertisements for the film appeared. MGM had done what they said they would. David Lean was given the star billing. But there was still a lot of work for Lean. He was to fly to Hollywood to edit the picture there. But the most difficult phase was over.
I remember I used to go, when I was young, on a lot of cruises. And they lasted about 2 weeks. And at the end of them, it was rather sad because one made all sorts of friendships and so forth and so on. There was a last farewell dinner, etc., etc. Rather sad. It's exactly the same with making a film. But my cruise lasts a year, and I work day in, day out with these technicians who obviously I've become very fond of. We work very, very close together. And at the end of it, the bottom falls out of everything in a way. One's suddenly at a loose end. One thing is good, though, that it's glorious to be anonymous for a moment.
Perhaps this time it won't be so easy to be anonymous. Not so easy to slip away out of the limelight and become an ordinary, unrecognized tourist. MGM are creating an image, a box office draw. From now on, David Lean will have to live with that image all the time.
And after a bit, I realized there was somebody behind the camera. And I remember King Vidor. He did a film called The Big Parade. There was a man called John Gilbert and a girl called Renia Dore. And they were saying goodbye to each other. And there were close-ups of her with moving, people moving, troops moving all the time. So it was a static figure against this flow of soldiers. Oh, God, that's marvelous, tremendous sense of movement. I never forgot it. I copied it almost exactly in Zhivago. When Lara is looking for someone, that's where she meets Zhivago. And I had people walking against one single figure. Worked well, thanks to King Vidor.
David wanted some spectacular points of view shots of Oliver when he's running away from the crowd before he's caught and taken to court. So I came up with the idea of getting a pram, a baby's pram. Now in those days the old-fashioned prams had 4 big wheels and they had a form of springing, curved spring, and the prams were quite flexible. So I said, well, could we try getting one of these and I'll try sitting in it. So I held the camera, they pushed me along on a fairly level bit of street, and this man came and punched into the camera, and that shot's still in the film to this day.
Oliver Twist would be David Lean's most visually ambitious film to date. As well as performing in front of the camera, Kay Walsh also worked on the script and provided the film with its arresting opening sequence.
Kay Walsh devised a sequence which was shot, which was very effective in the film, which is of a great plane with a girl, heavily pregnant girl, stumbling through a storm with thorns and bushes, and finally in the middle of this lashing rain she sees a little light in the distance and she struggles to it, and that turns out to be the workhouse, and they let her in and she gives birth right away and dies.
The man responsible for Oliver Twist's dramatic lighting was Guy Green, who during this production won an Oscar for his work on Great Expectations.
Oliver Twist, I think, is my best work as a cameraman. The opening scene of Oliver's mother coming across the moors, arriving at the outside of the workhouse, was shot on the stage at the Pinewood Studios. We did it most things in the stage those days, but it was quite elaborate, and I set up cloud glasses in the roof of the studio so that moving clouds would go across the moor, and it looked very exciting. Oliver's mother stops at a tree when she's having a labour pain, and we tilted the camera sideways as she had the pain, and then when the pain eased, we put the camera back on the level plane, and that was a visual concept of pain. Now, I've never seen that done before, and that really was the first time I think that was ever done. That was all David's idea.
After Oliver is born in the dark and unforgiving environment of the workhouse, the story moves forward 8 years to the film's most famous moment.
Oliver asking for more was a kind of an interesting setup. The theme, from my point of view as a cameraman, was I tried to give the idea of light struggling through the windows into the light had a problem getting in there. It was kind of gloomy, but nevertheless interesting.
Please, sir, I want some more. What? What? Ask for more?
Another important collaborator was John Bryan, the production designer given the task of transforming the sound stages of Pinewood into the landscape of a Dickens novel. Like Guy Green, Bryan had also received an Oscar for his work on Great Expectations.
John Bryan is the doyen of production designers. He introduced perspective into sets. He built doors in perspective with the top of the door not being level but being in forced perspective. He brought ceilings into the backs of sets, again with forced perspective, and all those sort of wonderful things. And any time you put a camera in a John Bryan set, you could get a composition straight away.
Some of the sets were done with what are called foreground miniatures. We'd have a big set, and then in the foreground would be a miniature top to the set, which was close to the camera, and the two things fitted.
Get up.
A master of the medium, David Lean often left the most disturbing scenes in his films to the audience's imagination.
Get up. There's light enough for what I've got to do.
When David shot the murder of Nancy, Nancy is murdered and bludgeoned to death by Bill Sykes. He decided not to show it in a sort of overt way on the screen, but Bill Sykes has a dog. When Bill Sykes lunges at Nancy because he thinks she's betrayed him in the story, there's a shot of the dog, which is the way David Lean did it, scrabbling to get out of the room, and somehow your imagination supplies more than if you watch the rather horrific thing happening. And the way we got the dog to do that was the prop man had a little tiny woolly cat thing, which the dog detested. So we had a door, and all we did was flash this cat through the door, slam the door, and the dog was scrabbling and screaming and hysterically trying to get at this cat. But it works in the film as though he's trying to get out of this horrible murder that's going on behind him.
Rather like the dramatic moment in Great Expectations when the convict grabs the boy in the churchyard. And David Lean has such a good, genuine and talented sense of how to create drama on film that it works.
That was the magical part about him. He was a rare, rare breed. He was a director that could handle actors, could handle technicians, could handle editing, and could handle script, and there aren't many around that could do that. He was in a class of his own. He really was.
Lean did amazing visual and audio transitions in all of his movies. There's a wonderful transition which is very, very subtle. It doesn't mean very much, and it's not symbolic, and you can't really analyze it, except it smooths over the cut. It's what an editor like Lean would do to make a cut less abrupt. Sometimes an abrupt cut is very important because it's the shock value there. Other times you want a smooth transition. I remember a scene in Zhivago in the lab when young Dr. Zhivago is learning from his teacher, and the teacher has a smear glass, and he banging sound, which is the couplings on a Moscow trolley car moving away on rails. I just recall that transition as being rather amazing. No real reason for it, except it suddenly brought you from the lab into the streets of Moscow. And there's another marvelous transition in Kwai, where the marvelous British stage actor James Donald looks up at the sun and he says, "Am I mad, or are we all going mad, or is it the sun?" And he looks up into the sun, and Lean cuts to a magnificent point of view of the round yellow orb, and William Holden steps into the shot of the sun, and certainly he's 150 miles away, dying of thirst in the middle of the jungle with his little canteen being drugged behind him. Or is it the sun? Transitions like that, which I think are so important. The transition, which is a marvelous, rather abrupt transition, where Peter O'Toole takes the match in Lawrence, and anxious to get into the desert and commenting, "This will be fun," he blows on the match, and suddenly he blows out the match and in the sun rising over the Sahara.
He was completely obsessed with the image, the story, and every aspect of the picture making. When he would do a rehearsal, he would look through the camera and he would absolutely want the frame to be exactly as he envisaged it. He wouldn't want it to be a little bit to the left, a bit to the right, and therefore that he relied on the camera people very much to put on the screen what he wanted, because we had no video monitors in those days.
I worked as one of David Lean's assistant directors over the last 11, 12 years. David Lean's very quiet and sometimes very shy and very modest. He's quiet, that's why he has assistants with him. They're the people who can do the shouting.
But I'd done a couple of very, very big films just before working with David, but working with David Lean, wow, people said, wow, going out in the desert, going to be there a year, living in a tent, that's fine. But it was a wonderful experience. It was like being in the army, but getting paid. But it was a fantastic, and David was so wonderful to all of us. It never fazed him what background you came from. He was interested in what you had to say.
And never was this more apparent than when legendary effects and location master Eddie Fowley became Lean's most trusted right-hand man over 4 decades.
David Lean was my best friend, and I was destined to become his best friend. In fact, he used to call me his brother. He came to see a set I'd just finished dressing, the prisoner of war camp for the bridge over the River Kwai. All went down well, and we got inside the hut, Sayato's hut, where he had to look out the window and see the prisoner in that oven out there. And David looked at that window for a few minutes and said, "Hang a nice white orchid in that window." And I thought, gotcha. He likes to have a touch. David always said to me, if you're going to kill somebody, do it in a beautiful place.
it's sometimes very hard, very good to play what we call play against the scene. In other words, if you want a very romantic love scene, it's sometimes very good to play it against a dirty brick wall. While if you play it against beautiful mountains, the mountains are competing with you, and you have two layers of romance, as it were.
I understood him. I could interpret what he was going to do before he did it.
Oh boy, I say to people who think one sits back in a chair with a megaphone, I say, you know, the hardest thing in making a movie, particularly a big movie, outdoors, is fighting tiredness.
It was a fight Lean lost on location in Venice for Summertime, starring Katharine Hepburn. But his core team proved they'd do anything to keep David afloat.
We were doing a sequence where Katie walked from the canal steamer to the pensione with the porter carrying her bags. And David arrived, sat in his chair, and he promptly fell asleep. And he was very, very cagey about the producer, because he thought the producer was always spying on him and keeping an eye on his schedule and so forth. And after about 10 or 15 minutes, I said to Jack Hildyard, the director of photography, I said, we better do something, because if Elia Lopert comes along and sees David fast asleep, he'll go absolutely crackers. So with that, I got my grip and the assistant to lay down some tracks, and we mounted the camera crane on it, and Jack lit it, and we had a walk through with a couple of stand-ins, and David woke up. He said, what are you doing? I said, well, I've got a setup. I said, because I thought we better do something in case Lopert suddenly arrives. So he said, show me then. So we got onto the crane, and we walked the shot through again with the stand-ins. He turned to me with that terrible icy glare. He said, is that your idea of a setup? I said, yes. He said, it's very good, let's do it. You know, that's how he was. I mean, you know, but if he hadn't been any good, he would certainly have said so.
If Lean found the Venice schedule exhausting, it was nothing by comparison with the trials of his next film, Bridge on the River Kwai. Shot on location in Ceylon over 8 grueling months, the crew paid a high price for David's vision.
All through the monsoon, people were bitten by leeches, we had dysentery. It was hardly any, I think there were only about 4 of us that went through the picture without going sick. That would give you some idea of the difficulty of the picture.
Directing his first tree-epic film, Lean had little time for the crew's tribulations.
Don't think he ever thought about it. You just, you know, get on with it.
We built a dam, the bridge over the River Kwai, so we could control the river up and down. It was a big dam, and somebody fell off it into the vortex side and never surfaced, because it really was a vortex, you know. And you could see the man's head coming up down here.
The stuntman Frank Howard was eventually pulled out of the water, only to die later in hospital. Despite this horrific accident, Lean proceeded with the film, until it came to shooting what was potentially the most dangerous scene.
The scene is that a train loaded with Japanese troops is about to cross the bridge, and the commandos want to blow it up at that moment. Everybody assembled to watch the shooting, the blowing up of the bridge, because once blown up, that was so you could only do it once. People from the Ceylon government came, everybody watched. The driver was instructed to proceed about 25 miles an hour, and just before it entered the bridge, he was to jump off and let the train continue on its own, because it would be blown up and fall in the river.
When we were going to blow up that bridge, which we'd built with trees we cut down from the jungle up there, with the help of elephants, all by elephants, no cranes or anything like that. And we had 5 cameras out there in different places
in the river.
When we were going to blow up that bridge, which we'd built with trees we cut down from the jungle up there, with the help of elephants, all by elephants, no cranes or anything like that. And we had 5 cameras out there in different places, and each cameraman had a sandbag enclosure. When he was safe, he pressed a button, and we knew where we were going to fire the thing, then we could press the button.
All 4 cameramen did it except one. He was so excited he forgot to throw the switch.
As the train approached the bridge, Lean could not be sure that one of the cameramen had reached safety and aborted the explosion.
But apart from that, the train went across at an enormous speed and crashed off the far end, knocked the generator over a cliff, and went on into the jungle.
We had to spend the whole of that night getting it back on the rails again, getting it back. The second day, everything went well.
And David said, "You'll drive the train. You're the only one I can trust to get that thing going at the right speed."
We can hardly go anywhere without a great mass of vans and cranes and camera cars and all the rest of it. But you're quite right. I often think of it's as if one were trying to write with a very, very fine pencil. One had a huge, great engine to do it with, you know? And that's one of the difficulties.
Do you ever feel that this monster is too cumbersome, that it oppresses you?
Not very much, because really filmmaking boils down to people, and I'm very fond of the people I work with, and it all becomes very friendly.
And ultimately, presumably, monster though it is, it never actually is out of your control.
Not really, no. Not if you have people who can work the monsters. And I have.
The expertise and commitment of those people was tested to the extreme when Lean headed into the deserts of the Middle East in 1961 to shoot Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia, the man torn between two civilizations.
The picture was a nightmare. Lawrence of Arabia took 12 months to shoot, 1 year exactly to shoot the entire picture. It's an enormous shooting time. But we shot in Jordan, we shot in Morocco and in Spain.
And there was no accommodation. We built a huge camp, a camp for the studio and a camp for all the workshops, and a camp for the crew and a camp for the restaurant, and everything, all built by intent.
Terribly tough job. So tough that David used to fall asleep, as far as I know. I mean, we couldn't even have meetings in the evening because the work was so heavy. I mean, all those people that you saw on that call sheet, that sort of thing, in intense heat, with you being the director, totally responsible for everything, with all these assistants. I mean, he was in no mood to socialise or do anything. And it was the desert. I mean, it was the dreary, boring, lovely, but sand, and wind, nothing else.
I'll never forget being in the desert and living in a caravan out there, in this enormous great place, miles away from anywhere.
When he was directing on the set, he used to like it to be quite quiet. He didn't like a lot of noise, and so people used to speak in hushed tones. And he used to think things through very carefully and almost ponderously in a way before he shot a scene.
Lean's need to think things through was sometimes at odds with the practicalities of shooting, as cinematographer Freddie Young would find out to his cost.
On Lawrence of Arabia, a lot of the sequences were so complex that they were pre-set up by John Box, the art director, and myself. It was to be shot at magic hour. That is the time when it's neither day or night. And you only get about 3 or 4 cracks at it. One is always too early, one is too late, and the middle one is usually just right. Anyway, we set this scene up. David arrived with the main crew. He looked at it. He didn't say anything. He just looked at the camera, and I said, well, this should be right about 6 or 6:30, I think, David. All right, he said, and he went and sat down. Now, the cameraman, of course, was Freddie Young. So after about 50 minutes, he said, David, I think we'd better go. It's getting, time is marching on. We better try the first shot at it. And David wouldn't budge. He just sat in his chair. He wasn't talking. And another 10 minutes went by, and Freddie urged him once more. He said, David, it's not now or never, but very soon it'll be too late. And with that, David got up. He grabbed my arm, and I won't tell you what he said because this is a public broadcast show, but it was completely horrible. I mean, he went absolutely shouted at Freddie and rushed me off with his jeep, and that was the end of the shooting for the day. He never did the shot, and he wouldn't speak to Freddie for about a couple of days, and it was very awkward, very embarrassing. And I went off with my unit to do some other work. And a couple of days later, I spoke to Ernie Day, the camera operator on Freddie's unit. I said, did you do that shot that I set up? He said, oh, yes. He said, we shot it. I said, well, what did he do that was different? He said, nothing. I said, well, what was it? Why didn't he shoot it when we did it the first time? He said, I don't know at all. Whether he saw something in the light or something that displeased him, He never said, but that's how he was.
What was he really like, this controversial figure who became a legend in his own lifetime?
Despite the sheer scale of the production, Lean's attention to detail would not be compromised.
I'll give an instance of how meticulous David was. We had 2 armoured Rolls Royces on Lawrence of Arabia, and one of them had to come into a low camera before the scene opened and stop with the wheel in camera. And he insisted that that stopped with the RR on the wheel disc was the right way up when it stopped. It wasn't easy to do.
A desert railway track explodes and horses are freed from weapons.
Lawrence and Arabia. Together, they made history.
Perfection may have been Lean's aim, but he was rarely satisfied by his own work.
David said, you know, had I seen Lawrence? And I said, yeah, about 7 or 8 times, David. What do you think? Oh, I thought it was superb, fantastic, wonderful. What did you think about it when you saw it, David? And he thought for a couple of seconds, and he said, you know, Mike, I could have done it better. Well, how much better could you do Lawrence of Arabia?
The dedicated maniac who had captured the images in Lawrence so perfectly was the late Freddie Young, who went on to win 3 Oscars with Lean.
Lighting cameraman on a film has many responsibilities. He has to not only light, but have a good artistic understanding of composition. Well, I worked with him on 3 pictures, Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago, and this present one. So I knew David years before. In fact, as a young man, he edited quite a number of my pictures. He's a hard taskmaster, you know, to all concerned. But if you're enthusiastic and you don't mind hard work, well, then you just get on fine.
Freddie understood him. Freddie understood exactly what David wanted, same as I did. He was a wonderful man, Fred Young, wonderful cameraman. Between the 2 of them, they were brilliant at making pictures.
Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer presents David Lean's film of Boris Pasternak's Dr. Zhivago.
Freddie had become an integral part of David's team, so when he was unavailable for Dr. Zhivago, his replacement had a lot to live up to.
We built the big street right all the way up to the Kremlin, and it's the first night's shooting, first night, the beginning of the film. And we had a cameraman on. He took all night to light the set, all night. It was nearly dawn and David was really getting upset. He suddenly put on some front light and all the snow and everything else disappeared, of course. He said, I can't stand it any longer. I can't stand him, he's got to go. And I don't care if we got, Freddie Young was out in Khartoum or somewhere. He said, I'm not going to do it until I get Freddie Young.
And get him back he did. Ryan's daughter was to prove another test of the team's dedication. This time it wasn't just a set, but an entire village with cobble streets and running water that was built in Ireland. With attention to detail like that, it was little wonder that the shoot would drag on over 2 winters.
Some terrible journalist came to me and said rather earnestly, Mr. Lean, is it true you wait 5 weeks for a wave?
For actors like Robert Mitchum, that's exactly what it looked like.
David always relied on us, assistant directors, to look after the actors and even, you know, sometimes socialise with them. He would say to me which ones he thought were difficult and how was I going to handle it. And I said, well, I'll let you know when I've handled it, I guess, David.
When you're offered a film, you're said to look at the contract to see how many days you get off.
Not the contract, look at the script. See how many days off I get.
Was this a good script from that point of view?
It was, but I was led down the garden path, you see. When I'm not working, I'm standing by. I'm under house arrest.
But, you know, as I said to Robert Mitchum, and he knew better because he'd been in Ireland before, I said, you know, Robert, the weather, you know what it's like. We've got to hang around. Suddenly, you know, David's looking at the clouds. I said, yeah, of course he's looking at the clouds. There's plenty of them. David had never shot in Ireland. And I told him the weather's going to change from 1 hour to the next.
Terrible weather. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was getting dark, of course. And that winter in Ireland. And we'd chained a caravan down for him in a lee behind some high ground. And he and I and Freddie Young were in there taking off the wetsuits. And David said, how are we going to finish the beach scenes, which I haven't finished all yet? I said, well, I've seen some good pictures of beaches in South Africa. He said, well, when can you go to South Africa? I said, when you say. He said, now, 3 days later, I was back. And he said to me, I thought you were going to go to South Africa. And I said, I've been to South Africa, David, and I found a little plastic bag and I tipped the sand out. I said, there's the sand for Freddie Young to save the colour I match. And he said, what do you think? And I went on it.
Eddie crosses his fingers.
And I said, I think, pack it all up, put it on an aeroplane, and we'll go down and finish the picture. He said, you're the only one that ever says to me, we'll do it that way. And I agree.
I can't help wondering if you had been brought up at a time before the advent of the cinema, what would you have been?
I think probably a complete dud.
Most people only saw the hard man behind the camera.
Don't worry about the back.
But when not at work, Lean's maniacs encountered a different side to him.
David, privately, was nothing like I've described him as being a tough guy for making his movie. But that was all because he wanted his movie made his way. But he was different off stage.
He had the greenest fingers. In fact, he was so keen on gardening that Kay Walsh, when they were married, for his birthday, bought him a huge lorry load of manure. That was his birthday present.
After work, sometimes socially, he was very funny and very, very good fun to be with, and he could enjoy himself. It's a side of him that not many people knew, because he didn't socialise a lot, and certainly very rarely with the artists.
We'd go to the cinema in Uxbridge, and David would say, I can't hear the sound, it needs turning up. And he'd go and see the manager. The manager said, oh, sir, you don't understand. This is the way he didn't know who David was. This is the way the film comes to us. We can't alter the sound. And David said, don't be silly. Let me go up to the projection box and turn it up a few dBs or something, which he did.
He liked good food. He wasn't a drinker. He didn't drink very much.
He loved to go to the Savoy, where they used to have a little orchestra, sort of like they used to have when he was a young man. And he used to get up there and dance in the old-fashioned sort of jiggery dances they used to do.
He did like dancing, yes, he did like dancing, that's quite right, he did like dancing. And in fact, I gave him a whole pile of LPs, which I brought out to the desert, which he never returned.
David was a different sort of chap off stage, full of kindness. At the end of Dr. Zhivago, he gave me his Rolls Royce and bought himself another one. And he said, I think you'd look rather good in the Rolls Royce. That's why I say you never knew whether it was hard on the outside, soft on the inside, or the other way round.
So really, you go through phases of working with people for a period of time?
Yes, or they get sick of working with me and I...
Or you milk them dry?
Yes, maybe I do, yes.
I was a friend. A deep friend, a dear friend, a professional friend. I think he liked me very much, like I liked him, but we drifted apart.
I last spoke to him when he was at the place in London where he'd bought the old warehouse, and he was preparing Nostromo. To my mind, no one has really ever filmed Joseph Conrad successfully. Wonderful read, but almost untranslatable into film. And I said, well, I do wish you luck on it, but I said, I'm personally apprehensive. He said, oh, don't worry, it'll be all right, and so forth. And that's the last time we spoke.
Then life changed for me, really. I lost a good friend there. Anyway, what it's done is left me with some wonderful memories, and I'm glad to have the chance to share a few of them with you.
When it's all finished, the music's done, you've said goodbye to all the actors, it's a breaking up of a very warm little family, really, and the film is finished in a pile of cans, and you're on your own again.